Hi, my friends. How are you? Happy Thursday. Happy February 17th. It's the middle of the month. The month is doing what it does, it just zooms by. If you are still in high school, it's probably not zooming by for you. But if you're in high school, you're not watching. So I'm not talking to you. As we age, it just seems like the time just goes zoom, 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 faster and faster. Well, you're mostly my friends and family. So, I'm Shannon. And if this is the first time that you're watching this, either live or the broadcast, this is Radiant Rap. Yeah, I had a nerve to even name it. Radiant is significant because we were all meant to shine and be radiant. And radiant means it's an acronym for rest, activity awareness, diet, introspection, which is the prayer and the meditation comes into that, agua, because we need to hydrate, note taking, because journaling and writing things down is so important, and training for our physical bodies are the things that I believe that are necessary to be healthy and whole, mind, body, and soul. Okay? We can be physically fit and still be a hot mess. And we can be glorified, which is the most important, actually. Just know we saved going to heaven when we die, but we live in a miserable life here on earth in this body that is called a temple. So today we are continuing our conversation of heart matters. This is part 2. Part 1 I did last week when I was on a date with my boyfriend, aka husband, aka Kev, the father of my 3 children. And that was fun because he does not do social media. He was such a good sport. He's coming around a little by little. Hey, Tanya, how you doing today? How was your day? Still going, I'm sure. Yeah, I was on your page the other day and I saw you doing your jewelry. So you just shout out for you and your I'm forgetting what the name of it was. Something T, I think. But you were so cute as you were displaying. It was earrings. You were focusing on earrings. So cute. So yeah, heart matters. During the month of February, there's a lot of emphasis on the heart, a lot of emphasis around the heart in various ways. The American Heart Association has declared this as Heart Month to bring more awareness to heart disease. Matters of the heart around Valentine's Day. So that's what last week, part 1 was really around relationships and being healthy and having healthy relationships. And I'm continuing this week. Lady T, that's what it was. Yes, Lady T. So that's Tanya. She's in Jersey. First Lady Tanya. And she's a twin, which I didn't know that for years and years. But yeah, she's a twin too. Hey, Gretchen, how you doing, baby? Good to see you. So when we talk about heart matters around the heart, and and this also Black History Month, and the reason that heart disease and health awareness, besides me being African American, it's very close to my heart. Hey, Claudia, it's so good to see you. African Americans are more likely to have hypertension and die of heart disease than any other group in the United States. So and people of color in general are. And that's for a number of reasons. For a number of reasons. Thanks, Claudia. Oh, you're writing poetry. Good for you. So I wanted to just talk about blood pressure, and I even have my cuff with me today. This is one that I got from Amazon because I'm going to be encouraging you to purchase one. But first, let me just review what is blood pressure, because I've actually gotten more people ask me that question that surprised me, because I'm talking about people that actually have hypertension, not really understanding what it is. So, and let me do the disclaimer. I'm not a physician. Make sure that you see and take the advice of your healthcare providers, right? Always. Very important. Yep. Congratulations, Gretchen. Very important. But when our heart beats, right? When our heart pumps, every time it pumps, it pushes, that pressure pushes blood through our arteries. And the blood pressure increases that flow. So if we have restrictions in the arteries, then it makes it harder for the blood to flow through our body. That's what the heart beats, and then the blood is to go through the body. And if there is obstructions, if it's clogged arteries, you start to get little restrictions. It gets harder to get the blood through the arteries. Then that starts to elevate the blood pressure. And so the reading is in a ratio. There's two numbers to your blood pressure. Okay, so when people will give me one number, I kind of understand that number, but you need to know both numbers. So the systolic number is the bigger number. That's the bigger force of blood pressure. That's when the heart is actually beating. What is the pressure in the lungs? That's in your arteries, in your blood. That's the systolic number. That's the higher number. Okay. And then the diastolic is when the heart isn't beating. So what is the pressure within the blood as it's flowing after that heartbeat, in between the heartbeats? That's a lower number. Normal blood pressure is considered 120 or lower than 120, less than 120, over 80. The systolic number, the bigger number when your heart beats, being 120 or less, and the diastolic number being 80 or less. That is considered normal. Elevated is in between 120 and 129. So they're not going to say that you have high blood pressure if the pressure of the systolic number is between 120 and 129, but they will say it's elevated as long as the diastolic number is still around 80. Okay. Stage 1, hypertension, is between 130 and 139, and between 80 and 89. So maybe the systolic number is in a good range, 120, 119, 115, but the diastolic number is elevated. Could be, it's over 80. All right, then that's still considered stage 1. And then hypertension, okay, stage 2 is 140 or higher, over 90 or higher. Okay. This is when it is consistently these numbers. Okay. You go out here and you do a bunch of push-ups, or you're dry. My blood pressure goes up every time I'm driving or something. So this means it's consistently over these numbers. Then you will be diagnosed and with high hypertension or high blood pressure. And I did talk about the white coat syndrome. I talked about that in an article. You can look back. I think I posted it on this page, and if you get my newsletter, you definitely got it. But I talked about the white coat syndrome and how when you go to the doctors, it could be elevated. And that's one of the reasons I recommend that you get a blood pressure cuff so that you can do screenings at home. But let me finish talking about what high blood pressure is. So that's basically what it is. And why is that important? Because it can affect your eyesight. It can cause kidney dysfunction. Because your arteries go all through the body, right? All through the blood. It has to go everywhere through your body. So if it's restricted, you could lose your sight. You could have a stroke. It's restricted in the brain. You could have a heart attack or heart failure. And those are two different things, right? Slightly different. I mean, it still affects the heart. It's still, right? But a heart attack is the blood flow is cut off to a part of or the entire heart. And then the heart failure is when the heart is not able to pump enough blood through the body. Okay. So that's just the difference. So, well, why? Real quick, let me just say, just talk about why. Why do we have high blood pressure? Well, it could just, in a huge part, be genetics, right? It could be some other illness that causes blood pressure. So that's where, and I just spoke about that as this being a part of Black History Month too, that, genetically speaking, African Americans tend to have high blood pressure and earlier than other Americans. And it's a whole lot of reasons why. I don't know. I think it could be, and I don't know really, but it could be from our survival here in the United States. We started eating a lot of different foods that nobody wanted, and we made them taste really good, and we survived off of it. But our bodies might not like some of that food. Some of that soul food is a matter of maybe cutting back on some of it, and this is generations of doing this, or modifying, finding other ways to make the food taste good. That's a whole nother conversation. Lifestyle choices, which is we can change. So why blood pressure? Yeah, it could be in part genetics, but it can also be lifestyle choices. If you don't exercise enough, it can affect your blood pressure. If you are overweight, it can affect your blood pressure. If you smoke, it can affect your blood pressure, right? If you have too much salt in your diet, it can affect your blood pressure. If you have too little potassium, it can affect your blood pressure. If you drink too much alcohol, it can affect your blood pressure. These are all things that we can control. Because I tell you, it's not one conversation that I have where it's not somebody has to throw out the example of, well, I never did it, and this, that, and my aunt never smoked and she got lung cancer. Okay, there's exceptions. I'm saying that statistically speaking, the numbers show that these things can affect your blood pressure. So I talked about what it was. I talked about why it is, various reasons, ways that we can manage the blood pressure. How can we manage the blood pressure? Well, we can, those things that we can control that I just mentioned, we can choose to live differently. Of course, medication can help us to manage blood pressure. But what I find oftentimes is that a medication may work for a period of time, but then it doesn't work anymore because we're quite often wanting the medication to do the work and not change our lifestyle. Right? Age affects our blood pressure. I didn't mention that one. So as we get older, our blood pressure is going to elevate, right? But it's still going to be considered high blood pressure. Once you're, in the 140s and even in 50s, 60s, 70s, but one of the ways that we can manage the blood pressure, another way, is to get a device that we can use at home. I got this one on Amazon. They're relatively inexpensive. I don't know how much this one cost me. I don't even remember, but they didn't cost me $100. They have some that are probably 20. This one probably cost me a little bit more, maybe 40, $50 maybe, but they have some. And if you can't afford to have, I just recommend that you have one. Okay. Especially if you've been diagnosed with high blood pressure, because it is known as the silent killer. It's known as the silent killer. You don't get any signs but with high blood pressure. And so even if you're on medication, you got to check your blood pressure. If you've been diagnosed with high blood pressure, you got to check it. Okay. So what you do after you purchase your machine, right? This one runs on batteries. You make sure that you sit with your feet flat on the ground. You sit up. It's likely that your blood pressure will be elevated higher in the morning, right? So you want to sit down and take the blood pressure cuff, and where the tube is coming out of the cuff, you put that over your arm. You make sure it's nice and snug. The tube is running down like the around the artery. There's a big artery in your arm, and you want your blood pressure cuff. This is not really where you want it to be. You don't want it high like this. You want it to be about parallel to your arm, and then you just turn the machine on. And the machine is set so you can put your age and stuff like that in there. And another thing, so then I'm going to turn it on now. I'm going to turn this on. And then it'll squeeze your arm. And so I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. So, and I'm one of those exceptions. I eat good. I exercise. I'm almost 60 though, so I'm in the age, and I'm African American. So I'm in those categories, right? And my family has a history. My specific family has a history of high blood pressure. So about 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. I went on medication. So at first I was trying to manage it, but it wasn't getting managed. So you don't play around with it. Don't say, I'm going to manage it. And a year later, your blood pressure is still spiking, right? So my blood pressure right now is high, right? And so I knew it would probably be because getting on live is somewhat stressful, and you're on and you're pumped a little bit. So I knew it would probably be high. And a lot of times during the day, well, let me just finish my story. I went on medication and then trying to manage it, and I couldn't manage it. And so it was really bothering me that, okay, I couldn't manage it, but the medication was managing it. So, okay, still not giving up on trying to manage it without the medication. But if I need to have medication to manage the blood pressure, it's that important. You use the medication. The problem then came with not only, so you have to be careful with medications, and you don't want to just keep piling on medications when you can avoid it, because there's side effects to medications. Okay. Then 2020, by the end of 2020, the last quarter, maybe summer, fall 2020, my blood pressure was not being controlled by the medication. The medication wasn't controlling my blood pressure. So now the doctors were talking about different medications, increasing the doses and all that stuff, right? So 2021, desperate measures call for desperate actions. I gave up all meat, all dairy, all seafood. That's how bad. I'm not saying that's the solution for you, but if I could find a way where I didn't have to use medication to control it, or if I was going to use medication, that I wasn't going to have to keep increasing the dose. Like, even if it's over 10 years and then 10 years later you have to increase, but I'm talking in a matter of a year or two, I'm already having to increase my dose. So for me, going vegan, going plant-based helped control my blood pressure. So now I can take my blood pressure like I just did, and you want your arm to be even with the machine. So my arm is too low right now and the machine is too high. So I'm not going to get an accurate reading. But let me tell you, a lot of times when I sit down to take my blood pressure, it's high, it's elevated. So this is what I do. I sit there and I breathe. I might close my eyes. I know some of you will sit down, right? And you're still processing. You're still stressing over something. You're still even stressing over, oh my God, what's my blood pressure going to be? That's where practicing meditation can be very helpful. So it's almost like when you're wound up, it's almost like a snow globe. You know those snow globes that you shake? And so it's shaken. So all of this is going on in your head, and just the day of, it could be good stuff. It doesn't even necessarily have to be bad. But to woosah, take deep breaths. And for me, I know the doctor always says, wait 10 minutes. And I don't. I sit down. I want to know what it is right then. Then I may breathe for 5 minutes. Usually I'm too nosy. So I do it again. And so I take it within that 10 minutes, 3-4 times, and it will go down, 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 down. Not every time, but consistently. On average, my blood pressure is below 120/80, which is very good. Okay. So I'm not saying that meditation alone, quieting alone will do it. But I find that this is one of the reasons you want to do it at home, because that white coat syndrome, you go to the doctor's office, if it's high, then is that a trend for you? Who knows? And that's another I don't know what the word, my husband just peeked in at me, seeing if I'm done taping yet. Almost. I'm going to be just one more minute. Another advantage And that's not the word. Can somebody give me the word I'm looking for? Another, it's so easy. I don't know why it's not coming to me. Another good thing about doing my blood pressure and having this cuff at home is it reminds me to chill out. Take a minute, chill out. It also encourages me to exercise, get my walking in, get your exercise, because it's going to affect your blood pressure. If you sit around all day, that will affect your blood pressure. Yeah, we definitely have to do what works for us, right? We have to do what works for us. But in almost every case, anyone that has high blood pressure, I recommend getting a cuff for home and taking your blood pressure on a regular basis so that it's not a silent killer for you. So you don't, it doesn't affect your kidneys and then you end up diabetic because of high blood pressure. You don't have a stroke, you don't have heart attack, or it helps, you to be aware of what's happening. And it also gives you another reason to chill out, take breaks, breathe. So several times a day, because I'll get on this, blood pressure cuff, and my blood pressure isn't as low as I need it to be. I need to pause. I will pause. And that's another thing almost everyone benefits from pausing and taking breaths, stopping in the middle of the day and slowing down. Go, 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 go. Being in that survival mode, your blood pressure goes up. It's up. So that's, just the way that we live nowadays, but our bodies don't like it. Okay. So today, part 2 of Heart Matters, we talked about what blood pressure is, why your blood pressure may be elevated, ways to manage your blood pressure, and then lastly, are you willing to make changes? It's up to you. You have to be willing to make changes. And your diet is going to affect your blood pressure. No, it might not come back down to normal without medication. But yes, it will have an impact on your overall health and well-being. It will have an effect on any questions, effect on your overall well-being. Tanya said she doesn't have blood pressure. Okay. But Andre does. And we have a blood pressure cuff as well. And so, Andre, look at how, first of all, because we have family history, our families go back generations in the same church. And Andre is now 3rd generation that I know of at Mount Olive. This is in New Jersey. And he is now the pastor of that church. That's a stressful job. Caregivers, stress, right? So I'm talking to every, healthcare provider under so much stress. And a pastor is a healthcare provider, right? Winning souls and taking care of, people, mind, body, right? And that's a very, very stressful job. So genetics, African American, stressful job, stressful situation. These are all reasons, and I'm glad you all have a cuff at home, but making sure, and I know you take care of him. So thank you. I've thanked you before for, making him go sit down somewhere. All you first ladies doing that job, taking care of that pastor. And you first men taking care of the lady pastors. Appreciate you. Any other questions? Thank you, Sheila. Thank you so much. You're welcome. You're welcome. Any other questions? Any other questions? So Tanya, you said you changed the way he eats. Well, see, you got power. That's something I've heard of him talk about. You know, how he listens to you. I don't know. He might be scared of you just a little bit, because most of us don't have that effect necessarily on our spouses or significant others. And the more we press them, the more they may retaliate. I know my husband, over time, he's really changed a lot of his eating habits, but he still, does his thing. And, that I leave between him and God. I just, nagging him is not going to help him to make changes. I've learned that. Took me, how long I've been married? 35 years. Took me about 34 years, 11 months now. And so, but anyways, Christy says, what's your doctor's reaction to being, you know what? I still haven't told my doctor yet. The last conversation we had about it, she reminded me, because I wasn't able to manage it without the medication, just might not happen. So she wasn't adverse to me trying, but and that's one of the reasons I am being responsible until I see her again. I'm just going to continue with this habit of taking blood pressure, because there's other benefits. I think that was the word I was looking for earlier. There's other benefits to me taking my blood pressure on a regular basis. But yeah, I can't wait to share that with her. And I had a conversation one day with a friend, and we were talking about, well, it might not last, my blood pressure may go up again and I may end up on medication, but I'm just grateful for however long it does last. And we'll see. This isn't the first time that even physicians have told me of something that wasn't possible, and it was because they're working on the averages. And we're not averages, we're individuals. And what they do is practice medicine. And I have the highest respect for physicians. One of my best friends is a physician. My daughter is in med school right now. So I have huge respect. I have other friends that are physicians, huge respect for them. But the ones that I have the most respect for are the ones that put God first and know their place, in it. So yeah, I can't wait to share that with her, though. Yeah, and you go to the gym, exactly, and you go to the gym. But as we age, that's one of the reasons the blood pressure does creep up. It's a natural part of aging, and so there may be ways that we can manage it. And so some of the things that I suggested today, and some of them are, take your blood pressure multiple times a day so that you can get more familiar with your blood pressure, and not just sit there and you're not really relaxing, you're not really letting go. Claudia is a yoga practitioner, so I know, Claudia, you know what I mean about that wusa, and just taking it down and trying to quiet the noise. But just because we're being still doesn't mean that we're quieting the noise. I even find that sometimes I'll sit there and I call myself, let my blood pressure go down, but I'm not relaxing. I'm thinking, I'm moving too fast. I'm thinking of what's next, and I have to really cut it down. I've been off my meds, and remember, I'm not suggesting this for anyone. I've been off my meds since the end of December, so it's been 2 months. Not even 2 months. Okay. So I have to, and I have my prescription. Okay. I have my prescription if I need to take it. But my medication was not, my numbers are better now than when I was on medication. My numbers are better now than when I was on medication. Oh, I don't know what that means. Let's see. Oh, love you too. All right, my friends. You all have greatness inside of you. You know I love you, and that's why I do what I do. Yeah. I gotta go too. We all getting out of here. So yes, start where you are. If you have other questions, if you're watching the recording of this, then feel free to share. I'd love to hear it. But yeah, just start where you are and do what you can. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. You, my friend, were meant to shine. See you next time. Bye for now.